And to help us discuss this is a State Army captain and the chairman of CB's Security Services, Bish Johnson. Thanks to you, Bish Johnson, for joining us on this hour. Now, let's get your views on the U.S. visa ban on Nigeria and then government's response so far.
Well, personally, I'm not surprised about this ban. The U.S. has not made it any secret that any country that fails to meet, some information sharing requirements, they're going to ban them. And unfortunately, Nigeria happens to be one of those nations. You see, we saw this coming for a long while. I've been one of those who have been agitating and advocating that we get our act together in this country, especially in the area of ensuring that we have a verifiable identification investigative tool. Nigerians don't have identity. And the implication of that is that you can commit a crime here in Abuja and you run to Kano and you change your identity and you'll never be tracked down. And so those are some of the worries and concerns that the U.S. has been having about Nigeria. But what is very embarrassing to a country as huge and big as Nigeria is that even our poorer little neighboring countries do meet the requirements. However, I will commend the federal government for at least setting up a committee to look into the problems. But I don't think that these problems are going to be solved overnight because we have been very negligent in terms of management of our identification. One would think that the National Identity Management Commission would have been equal to the task of making sure that they get every population of Nigeria into their system. Unfortunately, that commission, I don't know what the problem is. I don't know if it's funding. I don't know what the case is, that the problem is not, the commission is not living up to the expectations of Nigerians in getting everybody into their system so that there will be one centralized verifiable identification investigative tool, which is what the United States has been asking for.
All right. How does this affect or impact on the global perception of the country?
Well, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to say the least that a country that prides itself as the giant of Africa is put in the same category as what they call rogue or failed states. I don't want to mention them, but we all know some of those other countries that are on that same list with Nigeria. So for Nigeria to be in the same class of this kind of countries, to me, is very, very embarrassing. And with the United States taking this action, we will not expect that this ban will only be limited to the United States. I'm sure that, sooner or later, you will see some other countries, following queue with what the United States has done. And so to us, it's very embarrassing.
While the restriction is only for some categories of U.S. visa, what should the country be putting in place now to ensure that we do not have a recurrence of this kind of situation?
Look, we have to get our act together. We have to look into whatever the issues of the National Identity Management Commission is. We have to make that commission very viable and active to ensure that every Nigerian citizen is into their database and that they've collected all the relevant data that is required. That is what we need to be doing right now. Look, I registered with that commission for more than a year now. I only have a temporary card that they gave me. The permanent card, I've not been able to receive it. When I asked, they told me that it took them 2 years to get the permanent card of the president. So I'm like, if it would take them 2 years to get the permanent card of the president, who am I? So that means my own could even take my whole entire life, my entire lifetime for me to get that card. It shouldn't be like that. We have to get that commission up and running, and we should make sure that we get every Nigerian citizen with all the relevant information into their database, make it available for law enforcement and other investigative officers to have access to them.
All right, State Army Captain and the Chairman of CB's Security Services, Bish Johnson, thanks for your time on this.